Hey guys, yes, it's that time of the year. It's my yearly predictions video, and this will be for the year 2023. And just as a disclosure, I'm creating this video on December 28th, 2022. And as a disclaimer, I don't claim to be a prophet or anything like this. This is just my view of what's going to happen. And every year I like to look back at my past predictions. This year I was pretty accurate. We will see this year. And just to be fair, I'm not going to try to make a weak prediction. I'm going to make some bold predictions. I don't know if they will happen, but we will see. So let's just get through this. I think the number one thing will be the Ukrainian war this year. Right now, as I do this video, it's Wednesday, December 28th. It looks kind of like a stalemate. Russia invaded back in end of February of 2022. They initially got right next to Kiev. Then they pulled back or retreated. And now all of the battle is in the Donbass primarily. And Russia looks like they're making some gains, but it's very slow. It's kind of reminding me of trench warfare in World War I. A lot of artillery back and forth. The United States, we're spending billions upon billions of dollars. It's basically a proxy war between the global American empire, which is headed by the United States, against Russia. Ukraine is just a pawn in this. The real issue is we have the vision of how the world will be, kind of the Great Reset vision, a world of one world government where you have you live in pods and you eat bugs and we worry about climate change and we try to eliminate whiteness and BLM and all that type of stuff. That is the view we have of the world, and we see Russia as being a threat to that worldview. So that's, I think, the primary reason for the war right now. It's not really about the Donbass. I mean, who cares about the Donbass? It's not that big of an area. If the people in the Donbass want to live as part of Russia, I mean, why should we care? But we do, and it's become sort of like a holy war for us, or an unholy war, as we're advocating the whole LGBTQ agenda. So it's really intense right now. And I thought of the possible outcomes that could happen in the coming year. One could be a total global America victory. And what would that look like? That would mean Russia is routed out of Ukraine and Putin falls. And we install someone else in charge of Russia that holds our values. So by this time next year, we will be having LGBTQ parades in Moscow. They'll have their drag queen story hour, and little boys in Moscow will say, "Oh, you're actually a girl," and it'll be that whole thing. And there'll be BLM marches, and we'll be saying, "Yeah, we need a lot of African immigrants into Russia to diversify it." That would be the total victory, decisive victory for the global American empire. I don't think that's likely to happen, but it's a possibility. Another less extreme possibility is Russia loses, they pull back, they no longer have the Donbass, maybe they even give up the Crimea, and they sue for some sort of peace. But Putin remains in power. That's possible, but that would be a tough and bitter pill for Putin and Russia to swallow. That would mean this whole year was wasted for nothing. All those thousands of lives just go back to the status quo. That's going to be difficult. I can't see that scenario happening. Maybe it will, but if that should happen, I think Putin's going to fall. But we will see. The third scenario, and this would be the most likely scenario if we didn't have psychopaths running everything, so probably won't happen. The most likely scenario is there'll be some sort of negotiation where we'll allow the people in the Donbass region to vote if they want to be part of Ukraine or part of Russia or independent. They already had a vote this year and they voted to be part of Russia, but we said the vote was invalid. It was a farce. We engaged in election denial. And but okay, so maybe we'll do another vote with the UN there and let them decide. I think Russia would go with that. I think the people would vote to be part of Russia. And then there could be agreements that Ukraine stays out of NATO and demilitarizes. That's a possibility. That is something I think that would end the war. So you still have Ukraine and they would still have their country, just not the Donbass, which is mostly Russian anyway. That would be the most logical solution. That was the solution that Elon Musk earlier this year proposed. And all the war hawks, they just went insane about that, upset. So I don't see that happening. I mean, it should happen, but again, we in America, or at least our leaders, not me or regular Americans, they see this as a holy war to defeat Russia. I don't think they would buy off on that because that would look like a loss and it would show that Russia kind of won. They took over territory, and I don't think that would be acceptable. The other outcome is Russia has a decisive victory. Maybe they attack from Belarus and they do take Kiev, and Zelensky flees to his mansion in Florida or Tel Aviv. That's possible too. But again, I think that's unlikely. I doubt that the United States will just allow that to happen. So, what will happen? I think this time next year, sadly, we're not going to see much of a change. It's still going to be a war. It's still going to be fairly static. I think Russia is going to make some gains, pretty dramatic gains. And everyone compares this war to like World War II. I think no, it's more like World War I in a sense with the trenches and a little bit like Vietnam, at least our response. And so my prediction is Russia will make some gains, but those gains will be pushed back a little bit as the United States, I believe, we will get directly involved, not on the front lines, but just like Vietnam, we will say, well, not only are we providing you with ammunition, we're going to provide Ukraine with advisors like special forces and maybe some air support or maybe Marines to defend the rear bases so the Ukrainian troops are freed up to fight on the front lines. Again, very similar to Vietnam. And I see the war escalating and tensions growing. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I think this is just going to get more tense. I think the war is going to dominate the discussion as it starts to bankrupt America and everything starts to escalate. And I think we're going to see a much more of an anti-war push in the United States. And unlike Vietnam, it's not going to come from the hippies or the left. It's going to be from the right. We're already seeing it, but I think it's going to be growing as Americans are going to be asking, what the hell are we spending all this money for the Donbass? So my prediction, by this time next year, the war will still be going on. The lines will be basically the same. Russia will have most of the Donbass and Crimea, and the United States will have more involvement within the war. All right. Prediction number two, I think will be the big news is Trump. I think Merrick Garland of the Justice Department has already decided that they're going to indict Donald Trump. And that's going to be a given. There's a special prosecutor now, and they're going to try to get him on trial in Washington, D.C., which there are no Republicans, the people that are going to be on the jury. So he will face jail. I think this is going to be very contentious and will almost tear the country apart, realizing that a former president could go to jail for bullshit. You know, January 6th was bullshit. Trump didn't advocate anything that happened. He did everything legal, asked people to protest peacefully. It's outrageous, but it's really going to tear at the fabric of our country. So I think this is going to be a huge contentious issue by this time next year. He won't be in jail by this time next year, but they'll be talking about it. They'll be talking about the trial and throwing him into jail. And there'll be a lot more hatreds in this country now, worse than it is now because of the Ukrainian war, the war with Russia, and then this banana style republic trying to throw Trump into jail. All right. The third big issue is going to be immigration. As I do this video, they're expecting 6 million people coming in illegally. Is it per month or something? It's just crazy. We're being overrun. We don't have a border. The people in this country are being replaced by Central America. everywhere now is starting to feel the strain, especially on the border like El Paso, but we'll start to see the strain on facilities everywhere. You'll go into a regular hospital to have your child checked on for whatever reason. Let's say he sprains his ankle. You'll see a bunch of illegals just laying all over on the floor. It's going to be a horrid situation. And there's going to be a lot of pressure on Biden to do something about the situation. And again, it's going to be front and center, the whole illegal immigration point of view. And I think it's going to be a big campaign item. What do we do with all these illegals? Not only securing the border, but how do we get the illegals out of this country is going to be a huge issue. All right. The economy, surprisingly, I'm not predicting like doom and gloom, Mad Max. I think in general, we're still going to see inflation, but that's going to be called the new normal. And I think the Fed's going to ease up and they're going to blink. They're going to be scared to keep raising the interest rates. And once they stop, I think you're going to see the stock market and Bitcoin and crypto by this time next year will be a lot higher. We'll see. We'll be able to measure that. But we'll still have pretty high inflation. And again, it'll be called the new normal, that we're running pretty hot inflation, but the Fed is scared to do anything too much because of the stocks and the economy, because I think the economy will run into a little recession this year, next year in 2023. But by the end, they'll be cutting interest rates again, or at least pausing the interest rates increase, which will boom stocks and crypto. But inflation will still be a problem for a lot of people. You're still going to see higher food prices and energy prices. My next prediction is racial riots are going to be back on the menu. We're going to get a lot of talk about reparations. Blacks get so much money because their granddaddy was a slave. Then there's going to be a lot of tension of, well, who qualifies? If you're half black, do you qualify? And then Jews are going to say, well, why do we have to pay? We're victim too of the Holocaust. And then all these millions of Hispanics that have flooded in, they're not going to want that. So we're going to see a lot of racial problems. We're already seeing them now with the crime epidemic, a lot of looting that happens in the city. I think we're going to have an incident, kind of like a George Floyd situation, where there's looters in a small convenience store, and an Asian or a white or maybe even a Hispanic owner will pull out a gun and shoot some of the looters. And that will enrage Biden and the FBI. How dare you shoot our looters? And they'll be coming down, and then you'll see widespread riots. That will basically be racial based, and it won't be white and black. It'll be also Hispanic, Asians. And so it's going to be a very tense time. So I look for racial riots to be back on the menu. All right, my next prediction, following all this, I think Joe is going to continue his decline, Joe Biden. And by this time next year, he'll be 81 years old. And I think it will be clear he won't be in position physically or mentally to run for president again. As I do this video, he's officially, I think, decided to run. But I think they're going to have the talk with Joe, meaning his handlers, saying, no, you can't go forward with this. People hate you now. We need someone fresh. And I think they're going to have a talk with him, and he'll come out and have an address and saying he's done a wonderful job, but it's his time to pass the baton to the younger generation. So he's just going to fill out his term and support the new candidate, who I think it will be Newsom, will be the front runner by this time next year, Gavin Newsom. So take a look at that. My next prediction for the Republicans, I think because of all the mayhem with Trump and him being indicted, I think a lot of Republicans are going to flock more to DeSantis. DeSantis had a big victory this year in Florida. He says a lot of really great things. He's pushing back on this transgender issue of children in drag queen, a story hour in Florida. They're saying, no, you can't expose yourself to children. And he's being really strong. And I think he is going to be the front runner for the GOP, and Trump will not. Okay, my other prediction is because of everything that's happened this year with Kanye West and anti-Semitism, Biden will announce an anti-Semitism czar that will try to police people saying anything negative about Israel or overrepresentation of Jewish people in certain industries. And it will be the whole administration is kind of that way, but I think they'll try to push for that official position. And then finally, I know this sounds kind of black and black pilled, but there'll be some good news. Some good news is I think on the tech scene, I think we're finally going to see social media really become really more free because you're going to see a lot more competition. I think Rumble is going to do really well. They may have a partnership with Twitter. Twitter will be offering some video services. And you're going to see at least political and live streaming is going to start migrating away from YouTube. At least I hope it does. Once they start offering a super chat option and monetization, YouTube will still be big for like cooking videos or games or celebrity gossip or animal videos. But you're going to see a big migration, I think, politically to Rumble and Twitter. And I think that's the good news. So I think social media and all the embarrassment that came out, how the United States government was working with social media to violate the First Amendment rights of Americans by censoring them, with the ADL creating blacklists of people that they don't like to try to censor. I think there's going to be a little pushback on that. And I think we're going to see a little bit more freedom. Not this could be a knock on wood type of thing, because I don't know, it could be worse. But I'm hoping there's going to be more options that are going to become more mainstream. We already have options, but I think it's just going to be not considered weird to go to Rumble or Twitter to watch videos. Kind of like TikTok took off, and actually, I think TikTok is more popular now than YouTube. And that was unthinkable that would ever happen, but it has happened. And I think with politics and serious discussion and live streaming, that's going to migrate to, I think, Rumble or Twitter. Maybe Twitter and Rumble will do a partnership. That'd be really cool. And finally, Kanye West. This was kind of a easy one because I don't think anyone's going to be talking about this guy this time next year. This is an easy prediction because just a week ago, this was huge news. Kanye West running for president. And Milo, the campaign manager, Nick Fuentes, he's going on hiatus from Cozy TV to focus on the campaign. And Milo left the campaign. Nick Fuentes is already back streaming on Cozy. No one knows where Kanye West is. It's just in shambles. It's a joke, right? There's no campaign there. And I don't think there'll be any discussion. In fact, when people look back on this, they'll be like, oh, yeah, that's right. There was that Kanye thing. And I see that happening too. So those are my 10 predictions. And we'll see next year how I did. And I'll grade myself from A, B, C, D, or F for each prediction. This year for the 2022 predictions, I got a C plus. I gave myself a C plus. We will see how I will do next year. So, guys, thank you. I hope you all have a happy new year. I hope we have a great new year. There's a lot of stuff happening, but we got to keep positive and we'll get through this. So, talk to you guys later.